My stepdaughter ignored me at her wedding and replaced me with her biological father. But when it came time to pay, I was already gone. Hello Reddit I plus here. You ever have one of those moments where you look around and think, what the hell am I doing here? Yeah, that was me at my stepdaughter's wedding. For context, I've been in Danielle's life for 15 years. She was 8 when I married her mom, Claire. Her biological dad, Tom, was more like a distant relative who occasionally sent a birthday card if he remembered. Meanwhile, I was the one who showed up. Parent-teacher conferences, Mr. First Heartbreak, Mr. Learning to Drive. You guessed it, me. So, when Danielle got engaged, I was over the moon. She even asked me to help plan the wedding. I mean, I'm not a wedding planner, but I went all in. Venues, catering, the works. I shelled out a good chunk of money, too. Her dream dress, custom invitations, flowers flown in from who knows where. I didn't think twice about it. She's my daughter, or so I thought. Fast forward to the rehearsal dinner, and that's when things started to feel off. I noticed I wasn't mentioned in her speech. Not a single thank you or acknowledgement for the months of work I'd put in. Instead, she went on about how grateful she was that her dad could make it. Tom, the man who couldn't even be bothered to show up to her high school graduation. I figured, okay, maybe I'm reading too much into this. The wedding's a big deal, she's stressed, whatever. But then the big day came, and it all clicked. The ceremony started, and I was sitting in the second row, not walking her down the aisle. That honor went to Tom. And when I saw them together, her beaming up at him like he was some hero who'd always been there, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't even get a mention during the toasts. The bride and groom went on about how grateful they were for their parents, for the people who shaped them, supported them, made them who they are. And there I was, sitting at a table near the back, like some distant cousin. You know what's funny? I didn't even feel angry at first, just numb, like I was watching someone else's life play out. But by the time the cake was cut, the anger hit. It wasn't just the snub, it was the years I'd spent giving, investing, being there, and now being treated like I was invisible. So, I made a decision. Quietly, I slipped out. No goodbyes, no scene, nothing. I got in my car and drove home. The next morning, I got a frantic call from Danielle. Apparently, there'd been some confusion about the final payments for the venue and vendors. She wanted to know if I'd take care of it, as we'd discussed. And I just said, Danielle, I think you should ask your dad. Silence. Dead silence. Then a stammered, but he can't or won't, I asked. And then I hung up. Now, I'm not saying I'm proud of how I handled it, but I wasn't about to keep letting myself be taken for granted. If I wasn't good enough to be recognized as her father, I sure as hell wasn't good enough to pay the bills. I haven't heard much from her since. Claire wasn't happy about it, but she's been quiet too. I think she knows I had a point, even if she doesn't want to admit it. You'd think I'd feel guilty about it, right? Leaving like that, cutting her off at such a pivotal moment in her life? And maybe I should have. But here's the thing. When you've spent years being the dependable one, the one who always shows up no matter what, you start to realize something. People only appreciate you until they think they don't need you anymore. I wasn't some ATM. I was a dad, her dad. Or at least, I thought I was. The days after the wedding were quiet. Too quiet. Claire was walking on eggshells, and I couldn't tell if it was because she was mad at me or Danielle. She didn't outright say anything. But every now and then, I'd catch her sighing or giving me that look. You know the one. Then, about a week later, Danielle finally called. Not to apologize, oh no. That would have required self-awareness. She wanted to clear the air. Hey, she started, her voice all sweet like nothing had happened. I've been meaning to talk to you about the wedding. Uh-huh, I said, keeping my tone as neutral as possible. So I feel like there was some misunderstanding about, the payment stuff. I couldn't help but laugh. A misunderstanding. Right. Danielle, let me stop you right there, I said. There was no misunderstanding. You made it perfectly clear how you see me. You wanted your dad to have the spotlight? Great. But that spotlight comes with responsibilities, and paying for things is one of them. She went silent for a moment, then tried to backpedal. It's not like that. I just wanted to give him a chance to feel included. He's my dad, too. No, Danielle, I said, my voice steady. He's your biological father. There's a difference. I'm the one who raised you. And if you can't see that, then I don't know what else to say. I could hear the frustration in her voice as she muttered something about me being petty and making it all about myself. That's when I realized there was no getting through to her. She wasn't ready to understand what she'd done. Look, I said, cutting her off before she could start a full-blown rant. I hope you had the wedding of your dreams. I really do. But I'm done being treated like a second thought. When you're ready to have an honest conversation about what happened, you know where to find me. And then I hung up. Claire was sitting across the room, pretending not to listen. But I could see the tension in her face. Do you think that was a bit harsh? She finally asked. No, I said. Because if I don't stand up for myself, who will? I've spent too much time letting people take me for granted. That was the last real conversation I had with Danielle for months. Claire kept in touch with her, of course, and I'd hear bits and pieces, how she and her new husband were struggling to make ends meet, how Tom was back to his old ways, disappearing when they needed him most. I didn't gloat. That's not who I am. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a tiny part of me that felt vindicated. She wanted Tom to be her hero, and now she was learning the hard way that heroes don't just show up when it's convenient. Eventually, Danielle reached out again. This time, she sounded different. Softer. Apologetic, even. Hey, she said. Can we talk? And for the first time in a long time, I heard something in her voice I hadn't heard before. Humility. I don't know where things will go from here. Rebuilding trust takes time, and I'm not in a rush. But if there's one thing this whole mess has taught me, it's that knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less isn't selfish. It's necessary. So, yeah, that's my story. The wedding wasn't mine, but the lesson sure as hell was.